Okay, good day and welcome to the Travel With Us a While podcast. Sometimes the best podcast guest arrives in the most unexpected ways. A few weeks ago, I was quietly enjoying a Sunday paper when I found a fascinating double-page feature about echidnas that caught my eye. As I read, I found myself completely absorbed, not just by these remarkable little creatures, but by the woman behind the story. That woman is today's guest, Danielle Clode. Danielle is an award-winning Australian author, zoologist, natural historian, and associate professor of creative writing. Her books explore the extraordinary stories hidden within Australia's wildlife, landscapes, and history. Her latest book, The Enigmatic Echidna, shines a spotlight on one of Australia's most mysterious and misunderstood animals, revealing just how remarkable these spiky little monotremes really are. But Danielle's own story is every bit as fascinating as the creatures she writes about. She grew up around boats and the Australian bush, later earning a doctorate in zoology from Oxford University, before building a career that beautifully combines science, storytelling, and a deep curiosity about the natural world. Over the years, she's written books about just about everything, from killer whales to koalas to pioneering women, fossils, bushfires, and Australia's natural history, earning literary awards and a reputation as one of Australia's most engaging writers. So today we're heading into the fascinating world of echidnas, curiosity, conversation, storytelling, and the wonders that often hide in plain sight. Please join me in welcoming Danielle Clode to Travel With Us a While podcast. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Bron.
So, Danielle, before we talk about echidnas, I discovered that you spent part of your childhood living and traveling on a boat with your parents. As someone who has spent many years living aboard and sailing in the South Pacific, I feel we might have found a kindred spirit.
Yes, there's not so many of us around. It's nice to
No.
meet someone else.
So, when did you become so engrossed? Is this when you were sailing or when you were very young, or did you just segue into it easily?
In terms of writing or nature or...
Probably all three, four.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think certainly my love of nature and exploration was definitely founded by my childhood growing up. And I guess not just on a boat, but also on sort of um, more country areas of Australia, stretches of coastline without so many people and often going to places where there were no roads, which definitely gives you a different perspective of the
Absolutely.
country.
I grew up in Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, and my family were very much we traveled everywhere. If there was anything worthwhile seeing that a chief had told my dad, it was deemed to be spitting distance to get there, and 200 miles was a perimeter of spitting distance. So I've been in caves, swam in lakes, climbed mountains, and yes, and off the beaten track is my favorite place. So please continue.
Yeah, no, it is. But my second favorite place was probably the library. So I was also a very keen reader. And it's funny that when I was a kid, I entered a school competition and wrote a book for the competition. And it turned out to be a book on animals, which I
Wow.
think really shows my interest was started pretty early on.
That's fabulous. Yeah, so we actually have from sailing, we'd collected so many books as you do, and so we decided to put a free lending library at the front of our house. And it's a small town, Georgetown, so we only have about 8,000 people live here, but we're on the main road going out to Low Head. And so the people started coming, and I loved it that the kids were so enthused about books. So I tried to get a book library just for kids, but the adults were donating so many books. Long story short, we now have 3 fridges painted bright blue in front of our house, and the one is only for kids.
Right.
That's good fun. Yeah. So continue with your lovely story, please.
Yeah, so I guess the other major factor for me growing up, I think, was the fact that I did quite a bit of my schooling by correspondence when we were traveling around on the boat, and that gave me. And one of the things my teachers, it was a South Australian correspondence school, which is one of the bigger ones in Australia. Covers a very vast inland area, but for their mobile students, the teachers would say, well, if you don't like one of your assignment options, feel free to do an assignment on the place you're visiting, because, they felt that was a better thing to do than
Wow.
sticking to the formal curriculum. And so I embraced that very enthusiastically, and it meant
Can
that
imagine.
everywhere we went, my parents and I would immediately set off on an expedition to find out what was really interesting about this place we were visiting and to visit the local museums and talk to local people about what made the place special. And one of the places we visited quite early on was Eden in
Yes,
Twofold Bay on southern New South Wales coast, and of course the amazing Killer Whale Museum. And
I have
I
been
did a,
there a few times.
it's a beautiful
Amazing.
location.
Yes, yes.
And I'm actually looking forward to going back this year for the Whale Festival, which will be great fun. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that because the sort of story is that I did a school project on the killer whales. I was always fascinated by that topic and wondered how on earth and why that happened and there and nowhere else, that relationship between the killer
Yes.
whales and the whalers. And many, many, many years later, after I had done my degree in zoology, I met a publisher who said, the sort of story I'm really looking for is like this one in this museum down in Eden. And I said, I know all about that. And so I ended up writing one of my first books on that topic, which
Wow.
it had its basis in a school project that I did many years ago.
I love that. I shall have to get that one and have a look at that.
Well, it is just about to be. It has been out of print for a little while I've been trying to get it back into print, but it will be back in print later this year, and that's what I'm going to be launching at the Whale Festival.
How appropriate. How appropriate. Yes. Oh, wow. Yeah. When we were traveling, my partner and I, 6.5 years all through the South Pacific Islands, we regularly met young kids that were being homeschooled and traveling on a yacht. And the thing that totally impressed me is that their total understanding of nature, respect for nature, but their ability to converse with adults. And I just think that gives a person such a great start in life to have this awareness.
Yeah, I think the boating life certainly gives you a very different community that you're a part of. Where even as a kid, your opinions matter. That your role in you've got a role in
Yes.
the active life on board a boat because everybody has to have a role. So you're not a passenger. You're part of the crew.
Yes.
And you have to take responsibility for things, and particularly with your schooling, a lot of the time, well, certainly I did. I immediately took it as my job to keep myself on target and on time with my schoolwork. I soon discovered that if I did my schoolwork really quickly and got it all done, I could have the rest of the day free. So that was it. So
Good lesson.
my time management skills became really good, and that saw me right through my later academic career at university as well, because I was just self organized and self managing and not relying on other people telling me what to do. And also able to find answers to questions in unusual places because you didn't have the resources that other kids had. They couldn't just go and ask a teacher. So I had to find other ways of finding information and meeting all those different people on different boats and finding out what their expertise was. I met somebody who was a mathematician, so they helped me with my maths for a while and all sorts of different people.
How fabulous. Yes. So, I would be very interested in, do you have any children? Perhaps would be a good question.
I do. I have two daughters.
And do they travel? Do they be sort of in tune with nature as you are?
They are definitely in tune with nature. There's no doubt about that. We don't live a boating life, but we live a life. We've always lived in the bush and in the country, so on the outskirts of cities, really. And they have different. My youngest daughter is a biologist, and my elder daughter is an artist and an animator, but she's just working on her latest computer game, which is about Australian animals. So they do.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
You must be very proud of them. Goodness. Yes. Yeah. So, when you started doing writing, did you do it full time?
I took it up. I mostly took it up as a sort of an in-between thing while I was applying for grants and looking for jobs and things like that. So I started doing a bit of freelance writing because I thought that was a good publications are always good to have and it was interesting. And it just sort of grew from there into a freelance job, I suppose. But
Yeah.
like most writers, it was always a mixed portfolio of skills. So I also did a lot of technical editing, and so I worked in a wide range of health sciences, life sciences fields across a variety of industries. So doing technical reports
Yes.
and that sort of thing, which was really useful because it provides us a bit more of a steady income, and it became very helpful when I had my own kids. It let me work from home and be
Fantastic.
flexible and live in the bush area out of town. So it made for a better work life balance, I guess.
And I think that's the one thing that I have. Many of my guests are very into having a work life balance, and
Mm,
especially with regards to getting out into nature and just exploring the world around them. You don't have to fly over to another country. You can do it really in your backyard anywhere in Australia. So if you're
mm.
lucky.
Yes, that's right. You certainly can.
So, do you do any actual studying of animals in the wild anymore?
No, I'm not. I don't do field work per se. I mean, I sort of have moved. I mean, I'm still a zoologist by training, I guess, and by, subject matter. But obviously, I teach in writing. So I teach scientific writing and I teach creative writing as well. Much of my spare time is taken up by weeding and removing weeds in the bush, putting in nest boxes, doing all that sort of maintenance work that you do on a bush block. Uh, so
Yes.
so I guess in that, it's more just an observational looking at nature and being in nature and paying attention to what's happening around you as with the change of the seasons.
Yes, yes. My partner grew up on Flinders Island and used to grow vegetables commercially, but he's an absolute avid gardener, and especially natives. And we've traveled quite extensively on the mainland, both by land and sea. And we just love going to botanical gardens, and especially the ones that are run by volunteers in the little
Mm.
remote places. And it's just amazing. The people you meet are just lovely. We sometimes like them so much we go back again the
Yeah.
next day. One that comes to mind was an arid garden. I think it was near Adelaide, quite from memory, but my memory sometimes lets me down these days. Just to see, have you ever been to the Hamilton Gardens in New Zealand?
I don't think I have actually.
Well, we went to that because we always go to botanical gardens. We didn't think
Mm.
it would be, we just thought, oh, it'll be New Zealand things, which would be very similar to Tasmania, but, we really passionate about it. So we went along there and they had about 28 individual gardens within the botanical gardens. And they went from, one was a surrealist garden, which was you just thought you'd stepped into a totally different world, where they had a spade that was taller than my man and a
Mhm.
door which was probably 20 meters tall. You looked as if you'd become a little mouse in a thing. Another one was a Renaissance garden, and that was a very typical of the layout of Italian Renaissance. And then, of course, we had a Maori garden. And honestly, it was just blown away. The interesting thing is that they had started to have too many visitors. So they, instead of having it free, they made you pay 20 New Zealand dollars to get in.
Mhm.
But since then, it's doubled the amount of people that go because it's become, and they just continue to building these more different gardens. And even there was one garden that they had, which had a beautiful house and it was a donated house with the front lawn where they would play hockey or croquet or whatever it was in the time, and it had marquees set up for a big party, and the band was there, and it was like nothing like any botanical garden
Wow.
we'd ever been to before.
Yeah,
So
no,
don't
that's
miss that one
amazing.
if you ever go there. Yeah. So
Well, the Arid Lands garden up at Port Augusta is a spectacular
that's
garden.
that's the one,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's got some amazing plants, and the Eremophilas in particular, it's very famous for those. Absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, so we're going now. We're going next month on the Nullarbor, and I know people say, "Oh, there's nothing to see," but there's always something to see. And I think there might be wildflowers along the way at this time with the
Nice.
rain they've had. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's lovely. I did a trip up to Cooper Pedy to do research for the koala book. Strangely enough, you wouldn't think Cooper Pedy was an obvious place to go and find koalas, but actually a lot of the fossil koalas are from that area. And I was really struck by how the landscape changed so dramatically, so quickly as you're driving along, a
Yes.
long empty road, but everywhere you looked it changed, with different trees, different soil. It was just amazingly diverse.
Yes, and I think that's what I really enjoy is many people today, I've noticed, even some of my guests have said, they always used to just go fly into the capital city, take Ubers or public transport and look around there, and then fly home again for their
Mm.
holiday. And one friend of mine, they decided, no, they were going to do something different. They had two teenage boys, and they were young teenage boys, just teens. And they decided to hire a camper van and go and do a little bit off-road with that. And they never actually even went into the outback. And she was just blown away by what she could see. She thought there would be nothing to look at. And her children, she said, I didn't want them sitting on their tablets all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get them invested in where we're going. So we did research on every place that we could go to and made them decide 3 each which ones they wanted to see. And she said it was mind-blowing at the end when she asked them, which was the thing you liked the most? And they'd gone to the usual, those parks where kids go sliding and all those sort of things, adventure places. And they actually, both of them, liked the natural ones. And I thought, yeah, we need to get our kids more out into the bush, as we call it in Africa.
Yes.
So have you taken your girls doing camping and stuff or sailing since you've had them?
Yeah, I did take them sailing a bit. It was a little bit strange, actually. I never had any anxiety about sailing when I was a kid, but it turned out I have a lot more anxiety when my kids are sailing. Suddenly, that seemed like a very hazardous activity.
One of my early podcast guests was a family that the lady talked, and she had 3 children, and they have been living on their boat for 11 years. And when they started, the youngest one was still in nappies, and they put a rope around its stomach so it didn't go overboard.
Yeah, yeah. No, I had friends like that. I remember one of my friends, her younger brother was, they cut holes in a bucket and put the baby in the bucket and hung it on the boom. But yeah, when I came to have children myself, I thought, you know what? I don't think I would want to take them on a boat. It's strange how your perspective changes. But
It is, and
we've always lived on bush blocks, so my kids have spent all their
all
childhood
their life there,
playing
yeah.
outside. And when they were teenagers, we moved to Adelaide, and I said, would you like to live closer into town where there's access to public transport and buses? And they said, no, 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 we want to live further out. So I'm not sure that was perhaps what might have been better for them to be closer to a bus, but it's worked out well. They've certainly got a great passion for the Australian bush.
Yeah, I think it's really important to do that. So, have you got any tips for people when they are trying to find our native animals? Because many of the foreign tourists come and they just want to see echidnas, they want to see or
Mm.
wallabies and what have you. What would you suggest?
Yeah, look, it's a good question, and it is true that I mean, we often have people saying, can we see kangaroos? And we see kangaroos a lot where we live. So there's an abundance of kangaroos. It'd be unusual not to have kangaroos
Yes,
outside my windows. And koalas, I live in, Adelaide Hills is one of the densest koala populations in the
yes.
country. So they are abundant, but I don't see them that often. We only see them now and again. And echidnas are even worse. They're really hard to find. You have to choose your location very carefully.
Mm.
So Kangaroo Island has quite a lot of echidnas. Tasmania is a great place for seeing them. So you've
Well,
really got to pick
we
your
have
spots.
we can take a drive from our house to the Lowhead Lighthouse, and they'll be walking along the side of the road
Mm,
when it's
mm.
the time of year. And I just love that. I can remember I came to Australia in 1991. As we got out the aeroplane, I was looking up because I was landed in Launceston in Tasmania. I was looking for a koala, and I just couldn't get over that. How can they not live here? I was so disappointed. And I'm very into animals because I used to be a safari guide in Okavanga swamps in Botswana. So
Mm.
I kind of thought, what's wrong with me? Am I just not looking in the right places? I have to learn how to look for Australian animals.
You do have to learn how to look for them, and I think part of the challenge is knowing where they are and what time they are. So, a lot of Australian animals, you're best off looking for them in the early morning hours or on dusk. They're crepuscular in their habits. Although echidnas, interestingly, are not. And I was thinking, oh, I'll go out first thing in the morning and see if I can see an echidna. And then I thought, why am I doing that? They're notorious for only waking up at 11 o'clock. They are not early risers. They're teenagers in their habits. They rise late and they stay up late. So
Oh,
echidnas are unusual in that sense. But no,
they
getting local knowledge and finding someone who knows where to take you is definitely the best option.
I think so, very much so. And the thing about local knowledge, that doesn't only apply to animals, it applies to all the little treasures that are around. Have you been to the Asherton Tableland?
Yes, yes. I went to school in Innisfail in far north Queensland, actually. Just to do the last 2 years of my schooling, we stopped. We'd gotten up as far North Queensland, so we stopped at Innisfail, and I went to school for a couple of years there.
And do you know about the Victor Stockwell's puzzle?
No, I don't know about that one.
So this would really interest you. We were staying with friends in Cairns, but a bit out of Cairns, and the guy said to me, "We're going to take you up there," but something happened, and so he said, "Look, I haven't got time." He said, "I said, just give us the directions, put it in Google." He said, "No, you can't do that. I'll have to take you there." So we followed him, and he drove for an hour, and he pulled over on the side of the road. There was no markings, indications that there was anything there at all. Aside of after I looked at it a bit, you could actually just fit two cars in this little space.
Mhm.
And then we had to take our binoculars with, so we get out the car, and he rustles around in the bush for a bit, and he said, "Okay, can you see me?" We said, "Yes." He said, "Right, Ken, come to me." So Ken went to him. He said, "You see that? That's the little pink tire here. This is the start of the track. So as soon as you found one, you hoy to Bron, she comes down to that pink one, then you go find another one, and so on, and you repeat this because there's no proper track. It's just they're trying to keep
Mhm.
it to protect the species."
Yeah.
And the buttress roots of this tree were nearly 2 heads taller than Ken. But
Mm.
from way low, I was filming with my camera, and I was kind of holding it up because it just kept going up and up and up. And the buttress roots are what's the most amazing things. And that's the thing I say about locals. If you get information from locals, you just find the most amazing things. And
Definitely.
it was only named in these because it
Mm.
was found by accident in the middle of the bush.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there were cops of them. This was the oldest, obviously, and the biggest. But they were. He said to me, "Don't get excited when you see the first one. You have to walk another 50 meters because there's another one."
That's amazing. No, there's so many interesting little places that you can find if you've got a bit of local assistance for sure.
That's right. So when we travel, we have a Facebook page, and we usually share where we're going if we're going by land, and we say if is going to be along that route, please tell us your secret places that we can go and discover them.
Mm.
And it's been amazing. The completely not in guidebooks places. So I think the trick to this is you have to be nice to locals and support them, and then they give away their secrets.
Mm, that's true.
It's a trade-off. Be nice and they're nice to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
So have you got any tips for anything at all to do with our lovely wild animals, flora, fauna, historic sites?
It really depends what you're looking for. I mean, I guess the thing about getting your eye in is really important, like looking for koalas, for example, you can spend a lot of time craning your neck, getting a crick in your neck, trying to look up trees for koalas, but really
Just
you should be looking on the ground. So the most
right?
important thing is to look on the ground for koala droppings because they're quite conspicuous. They're sort of like oval shaped, a couple of centimeters long, and there'll be a whole lot of them on the ground. And you'll also see chopped off gum leaves falling on the ground. I mean, cockies and things do that as well, but
Yes.
koalas tend to leave. When they bite the leaves off, they leave a sort of zigzaggy pattern on the leaf, a bit like old-fashioned dressmaker's pinking shears, with the zigzag.
Right.
So if
Yes.
you see
Goodness.
them snipped off like that, you know there's a koala up there, and you can often tell if it's fresh or old. And if it's
Yes.
fresh, you look up and you'll have a much better chance of seeing a koala. So that's a much better way of looking for koalas than.
I love it. You'll laugh at this. Friends of ours that we were staying with, they had said, "Oh, you go to this place," and it was near Proserpine. There were some lovely hills there, and there was like old volcanic rocks. I can't remember the name of it. And so there'd been a very big storm the day before. So we were pulling trees off the track just to get to where you could walk up to have a look. And all the time, as you say, I was getting a crick in my neck because I was looking up and looking up and looking up, not seeing anything. And then Ken is muttering, "Oh, yes, I think that it's the Tourism Bureau puts the signs there just because it help keeping the tourists come, you see." So we had a cup of coffee and we were sitting there and then get back in the car, we give up, we're going home. Next thing, Ken yells, "Platypus!" Because in his excitement, he forgot what we were looking for. And, yeah, and then once we had seen them, then we seemed to see we found one
Mm.
on Mercury Island, and
Mhm.
apparently they have over 100, and we
Wow.
found 2 that are
Mm.
there that were brought there at some stage,
Mm.
and, they don't do much. It's not very exciting, not like a wallaby jumps and passes around and platypus go fossicking. But, yeah, they kind of just slept.
Yep, that is koalas are really good at. They just sit in the tree and sleep, and they're extremely good at it. They have no need to go to do anything else or go anywhere else because they've got all their food around them. They're safest sitting still, and they just need to digest their leaves, so they can do that asleep or awake, so that's what they do.
That's incredible. So, I was chatting to a friend, and he was saying he went bushwalk camping, tramping, or whatever you call it, with his mates, young teenagers, and they were in tents and they were terrified because there were this grunting above them. And I teased him. I said, "No, those are drop bears," but of course it's not. It's koalas because they make this dreadful noise, don't they? I mean, it's
Yes.
loud and unusual, isn't it?
They
Yeah.
do, they do. You know, some people say it sounds a bit like a donkey braying or,
Yes. Yes.
saying that sort of a noise, and it's very conspicuous. In fact, the other good way to find out if there are koalas around, depending on the time of year, is to fire up a chainsaw because our koalas, the males, will always respond to a chainsaw thinking it's another male. Sometimes they even respond to the jets flying overhead.
That's a priceless piece of knowledge.
Yeah, yeah, no, so we used to use that as a way, you know, if we had visitors, we'd fire up a chainsaw and see if anyone answered and then go and find where they
Know
were
where
in the
they were.
trees.
What a great idea.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
no, they're very conspicuous, but they are also a little bit problematic when camping. My daughter bears a long-running grudge against koalas because she went camping with friends and they had this enormous great chocolate cake that looked absolutely delicious, and she waited patiently while all the other kids ran in and grabbed theirs, and she finally got the last piece of chocolate cake, and she sat down to eat it, and then there was a trickle from the tree above and a koala weed in her bowl of cake, and she has never forgiven that koala because there was no more cake.
God, that's delightful. And funnily enough, at the time, it's horrific, but geez, you laugh about it later, don't you? Just imagine that would, after being such a polite, nice person, and the koala kills it.
Yes, she was very unhappy about that.
Danielle, it's been lovely chatting to you, and thank you for sharing a few of your stories. And I really just loved your Echidna story. I first saw Echidna crossing the road in a suburban area in Launceston, and I couldn't get over those long fingernails, I call them. I'm not too sure
Oh,
what.
yes,
Claws, I
yes.
guess. And I watched it, and it was like a model waddling, and I just thought, oh my goodness. And so that's when I got very enthusiastic about them. And
Yeah.
I think when you get tuned into where they are and how they are, you kind of seem to find them more. And
Mm,
we had one walk down the track near the falls near, golly, I'm not really good at remembering names, but this whole long walking track to get to Coles Fall, somewhere in Tassie. And it started walking at the front, and it was very sheer with a protective fence there and very bushy. And it literally came, I think it took about 3 minutes, and it then eventually got there, and it looked at my shoes and thought, all right, I'll go that way. Because there's my man saying, don't talk, don't get excited in my ear, whispering, don't move. Yeah.
that's great. That's
So little things like that stay with you, really. It's
They
great.
are amazing, and their claws are incredible, especially the ones on the back feet, which face the wrong way, which is really unusual.
Yes,
People always puzzle about that, but if you see them grooming themselves, you realize what those long claws on the back feet are for.
absolutely.
They're actually like a comb for combing through very curly hair, and they use it for combing through their prickles and trying to get rid of all of the stuff in between all their spines.
Well,
Of them washing themselves and they're using those combs to clean themselves up and get rid of their parasites. So, yeah, they're very quite fastidious animals, actually.
yes, and I share with you that I used to be a volunteer rescuer for Bonnerong Wildlife Sanctuary, and I got a call out about an echidna that'd been hit by 4 cars. Now, echidnas are my little favorite, and I just thought, oh, this is going to be dreadful, but I went, of course. So off I go, and the lady had said she would stay with where it was until somebody came. So it had apparently just hit one car, bounced to that car on the other side of the road, bounced to that one, eventually gone across the road and buried itself as they do. So I always had my rescue kit and appropriate gear in the car. So I went and dug it out and put it in the box, and I took it to the vet. There was a vet in Hobart that would do x-rays. This is long before. Now they have their own veterinarian hospital.
Mm.
It's much more efficient. And I was really distressed because That's my favorite animal.
Mm.
They actually sent me a text with the X-ray photo to say, "Nothing wrong with this little creature at all."
Wow.
That was amazing. The other disappointment was usually if you rescue the animal, you're allowed to be the one to release it back after they've given it a bit of R&R, and I had a meeting and couldn't go.
No.
But still, I think it's
Yeah.
quite fabulous.
That is a feature of echidnas, though, that they are incredibly resilient. And even when they are injured, they very often heal with surprising rapidity. It's something about being a monotreme that gives
Wow!
them really incredible resilience.
God,
So a lot of the time, unless their snout and their breathing is impacted, they will recover from some injuries. But and yeah, as you so I think that, but if people often find them in their backyard and think, oh, they need rescuing, they're lost. I just don't think echidnas get lost. I think they
yeah,
know where they're going. They always know where they are and where they want to go. And if you move them, they'll often just come back. So
exactly. Yes,
you're much better off leaving them in the place they are, and as long as they're not in danger, they will find their own way to where
yes,
they wanna be.
very good advice, absolutely.
Mm.
Thank you so much for being my guest on my show. As always, thank you for traveling with us a while. My thanks to Danielle Clode for sharing her fascinating stories, insights, and passion for Australia's unique wildlife. If you'd like to learn more about Danielle's work, including her book, The Enigmatic Echidna, you'll find the links in the show notes. One thought from today's conversation has stayed with me. I don't think echidnas get lost. I think they know exactly where they're going. Perhaps that's a reminder for all of us, whether we're traveling across the country, exploring our own backyard, or simply finding our way through life. Curiosity can lead us to some remarkable places. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you'd subscribe to Travel With Us a While, leave a review, and share it with a friend who enjoys traveling, nature, and great stories. You'll also find photos, extra information about today's guest, and links to all our podcast episodes on the Travel With Us a While blog. And if you have a travel story, adventure, or life journey that you'd like to share, I'd really love to hear from you. Until next time, stay curious, travel gently, and keep discovering the wonders waiting just around the corner. I'm Bron Hogan, and I'll see you in the next episode of Travel With Us a While.